Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, John Horn, coming out of Texas. And he helps medical practices and local companies drive more sales with Google Ads. He's the CEO of StubGroup, which is a digital advertising agency. It's a premier Google partner. And we're going to hear all about StubGroup, what it's done, and it's going to be a fascinating conversation, especially for the doctors, lawyers, dentists who are trying to drive more sales to their practices and companies with Google Ads. So, John, welcome.
Christopher, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I love digital marketing, advertising, the whole media space, and talk about your story, did you and how you started Stub Group, and we'll dive into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing this for a little over a decade at this point. Back in the day, a little over a decade ago, Stub Group was started actually by two founders, not myself. I wasn't one of the original
Oh,
founders. It was started, and they brought me on as employee number one. So I've been here pretty much from day one. But really, it started with the idea of, look, there's so many businesses, big and small, that need to connect with customers. And we saw this change of, traditional advertising moving over to digital advertising. More and more people are spending their time online finding solutions to their problems. And so many companies need expert help in stewarding their advertising, their marketing, their budgets to make those connections. And so we created this agency, a stub group, to make that happen. And we've been focused on that ever since. So, like you mentioned, Google Ads is a big part of what we do. We also we leverage other platforms like Facebook ads and Instagram ads, really anywhere digitally where we can pay to help our clients connect with customers and get new customers is what we focus on.
yeah. And I love a lot of I know when like Google Ads came out, like I think it was like early 2000 or early 2010s. That's kind of when, and now you have agencies that do it because it's like there's so many nuances. So, but in general, just kind of overview, why Google Ads, why not organic, why not email list, how to generate more sales and more effective revenue.
Yeah, fantastic question. The short answer is there's all of those channels you mentioned are important channels. Businesses should work with experts in all of them. When we kind of looked at things, we said, okay, we could either be, a jack of all trades and master of maybe some, or we could really focus on something and try and be best in class there. And so we chose that latter route of, all right, let's focus on paid advertising. Specifically, Google's the top platform we use, and then others like Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, but really on the paid side of things. And part of that, there's different factors that go into that. Part of that is looking at the incentive structure of the platforms themselves, which is Google wants to make money. They make money from advertising. And we've seen this over time, they push more and more ads onto the page, put more and more emphasis to the point where even if you're number one organically right now, you might still be the fifth or sixth thing that people see because you've got so much stuff that comes in front of that. And so we want to align ourselves with, all right, what's the incentive structure for the platforms and what are they gonna, push on behalf of their advertisers? And then how can we be in that space and make sure that we're helping advertisers to capture those spots most efficiently and effectively as possible. And so far so good, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like ads. The way I've been viewing ads on all the platforms are like it's kind of like added spice, and you have like kind of like you sprinkle a little bit of advertising, and that kind of gives you a little bit more promotion and reach. And one of the questions I have for you is, from the audience is, yeah, I spent this much on advertising, and correct me if I'm wrong, it basically there's algorithms, and Google can manipulate the advertising to basically get more revenue for them. And so like why and so people in social media, they're like, why would I spend ads when I can go to TikTok or Instagram, LinkedIn, get all these million of followers and get more reach and view. That way it's like only costing me time and that's a little bit of money versus
Mhm.
spending a bunch of ads and not getting much. So kind of talk about that.
Yeah, fantastic question. I mean, if you're a business and you can get the amount of business that you want that you can support without having to pay money on for advertising, Awesome, go for it. Now there is the big trade-off, like you mentioned, where what you're investing is time, and hey, time is incredibly valuable. So hey, if you're spending 20 hours a week creating content for TikTok and Facebook, and that's driving performance, awesome. But also, what else could you be doing with that 20 hours a week? Could you be working within your business to make way more money, and therefore, explore
Yeah.
different marketing channels? So there's obviously different things you gotta think through there, but I
Yeah.
would say for most of the clients who come to us and that we work with, they are looking to run paid advertising because they've seen that, especially on Google, the paid spots, that's what people are engaging with. When someone searches, let's take a lawyer as an example. Someone searches for a lawyer, lawyer near me, the first things they're going to see are going to be ads, probably the first four things they're going to see. And most people, it's just human nature. They say, hey, that's what I'm looking for. Cool. Let me engage with that and go through it. And so again, you might have really great organic rankings, but you might not even be able to get the amount of business that you're looking to acquire through just those organic rankings. And so for a lot of our clients, they're trying to get the best of both worlds. They want great SEO, great organic rankings, and then in addition to that, great paid advertising as well, so that they're capturing as many relevant people as possible, and then creating the opportunities to turn those into customers.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Your thoughts.
I was going to say, I see the same thing on social media as well, with lots of businesses, especially small advertisers, saying, "Hey, I spent money on Google or Facebook or fill in the blank, and it didn't work for my company." And there's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes it's it doesn't work for every single company. Sometimes they don't have the margins and the numbers for it to make sense, and sometimes we have to have hard conversations with clients to say, "Look, it's a very competitive space. If you're only making X, per customer you're bringing in, we can't." We can't get you new customers at that level because it's just too competitive. So that certainly happens sometimes.
Uh-huh.
But then often what also happens is that these small businesses, they'll have spent money on Google or Facebook, but they won't have spent it well. And
Uh-huh.
so, they're saying, hey, it didn't work. But the problem is they weren't going after the right people. They didn't have the right messaging. They weren't tracking to see which parts were working, which parts weren't working. And so they haven't tested the model to see if it could work well for them, if they're running good campaigns. They've just tried like the DIY stuff that Google offers or Facebook offers, and they said, oh, it doesn't work for me because they didn't know what they were doing. So I think I see both kind of sides to that coin fairly often.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is because for example, social media, they have the algorithms are gonna downregulate certain things and basically promote certain things and kind of like it's all kind of your true core audience versus kind of playing to the algorithm.
Hmm.
Is there such thing in Google Ads where they downregulate an ad where you spend a bunch of money and they're like, yeah, we're gonna rug you and we're not gonna promote your business? Does that ever happen? Just that's just for my own curiosity.
Yeah, there's a couple things that happen there. There are times where Google will flat out say you can't advertise with us, and that's what they call suspending a Google ad account. Google's
Uh,
got a bunch of different policies that you have to abide by, and a lot of small businesses and even big businesses, they'll either accidentally violate a policy, or they'll do something that was in a gray area because it wasn't clear what the policy was, things like that, and they'll get suspended.
uh,
And so we actually help a lot of businesses figure out what went wrong and fix those issues to get back online. We've helped a lot of businesses with that over the years. But separate from that, separate from actually, hey, you got the red bar of death in your account with Google saying you can't advertise. When it comes to like ranking ads and down relegating things like that, on the Google side of things, it's essentially it's an auction that takes place, and so everyone who wants to show up for a particular search on Google, they're targeting to show up for that keyword or that search in a variety of ways, and for each person that's eligible to show up, Google calculates an ad rank essentially. And so they're looking at things like how relevant is the ad to the search, how much money is the advertiser saying they're willing to pay for the search, and a bunch of different things. And so the winners are the winners who have, generally speaking, really relevant ads that speak to what the person is searching for and who are willing to, pay for that spot. And it's a very dynamic thing. Every single time a search happens, there's a new dynamic auction taking place. So there's, literally millions of signals and variables that go into it in the back end to determine that ad rank and determine who wins a particular auction. But ultimately, Google is trying to show really relevant ads to people because that's Google makes more money. Like the higher the click-through rate is, the more money Google makes. So they want to show if you search for, buy an umbrella, they don't want to show you an ad for Geico insurance because you're not going to click on that. That's not what you're looking for. Even if Geico's like, hey, I'll pay you $100 for this click, still they'll probably make more money if they show an ad for an umbrella that's going to get clicked, 50% of the time. And so they'll make more money even if they're making less per click. And so Google's like, okay, how do we maximize the relevancy of ads, which maximizes the click-through rate, and then looks at how much you're telling them you're willing to pay for those clicks to try and maximize their revenue.
Yeah, really said sounds like the other question I have is I'm always looking at the next frontier and social media, advertising, media, all this is a game of attention. So where does Google rank in terms of because I'm always looking for the undiscovered areas where you can maximize, like you pay for an ad and you get maximum return because eventually these platforms will mature and then you got to move on to. So where does Google compare to, like you mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok? I'm not sure what going to happen to TikTok, but kind of
Yeah.
these Snapchat, all these platforms.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to look at it. And I would say I would probably put Google and Facebook and Instagram on a similar level in terms of maturity. They're very mature platforms. They're the biggest advertising platforms digitally. And so tons of advertisers. It's usually the first place people go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot less arbitrage than there used to be in terms of, look, it's very competitive. Now the reason it's competitive is because they have so many people's attention. So if you want to show up for people who are searching for something, you got to be on Google. You could just go after Bing, but they've got whatever, like 8% market share. So, you're going to have a few people, but nothing compared to the scale of Google. Same idea, for Facebook, Instagram. In terms of frontiers, I think, there's always frontiers. I think one frontier that could really change the search landscape in particular is AI. Specifically, what I mean by that, things, LLMs like ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, things like that, which there's a lot of unknowns, but I think the many billion dollar question right now is how is that going to impact people's search behavior? Are they going to start their searches in ChatGPT or Gemini as opposed to going to google.com? If so, how are the different companies going to try to monetize those things? Are they going to start putting ads, into those systems as a subscription model, things like that? So
Yes.
that's a frontier that we're looking at very closely to say, all right, how is this going to change how our clients can connect with people online, and how can we make sure that we're positioning our clients well to take advantage of that potential change in search behavior.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because when I go to Google to search, it's just one step, and then when I go to ChatGPT, which gives you a better answer, it's additional two steps. So it's kind of like, is it worth that extra to get better information, or kind of for the AI to put it together? And that was my question about this AI and advertising is
Yeah.
how is how is AI, I mean, you mentioned, how people are searching, but how is AI
Mhm.
going to play into digital advertising, this media landscape?
AI is massively involved in the digital advertising side of things, and that's been true for a long time, even before, ChatGPT made everyone more aware of AI's capabilities and kind of showed off the magic. But it's something that is incredibly integrated into kind of the back end of how Google's determining who to serve ads to, which combinations of ads to serve to,
Uh,
how much to bid for different ads. So it's a very dynamic landscape. And as agencies, as advertisers, what we do is we try to marry those tools kind of behind the scenes with what our clients' goals are, what their offers are, their messages, etc. And so we leverage AI, constantly just as part of each of the platforms that we're managing on behalf of our clients throughout the day, because it can make decisions at scale that humans literally can't. There's about, I think, 70 million different signals that go into each auction. Like each time you Google something right now, there's 70 million tiny little things in the background and big things as well that Google's looking at to determine what ads they're going to show you. And no human can do that and analyze those things. So AI is crucial for aspects including that and ad copy creation and all
yeah.
sorts of other things as well.
So it sounds like these you outlined some very specific strategies and you talking about effective targeting and optimization, but it sounds like this marketplace is almost very dynamic. It sounds like the stock market actually. And then so how do you do this? I mean, your one strategy could work one day and then the next campaign could like fail. So I mean, what do you do? I mean, obviously you work with a professional company, but I mean, how
Yeah.
do you stay abreast?
Yeah, it's very dynamic. And a lot of it comes down to setting the right parameters. So, let's say a lawyer comes to us, wants us to manage their campaigns. First, we're going to identify, okay, well, what types of law do they practice? What types of law are most valuable to them? Are there nuances within that, whether, in terms of the types of things that people might search for? Hey, maybe they're looking for family law of this type that's, twice as likely to close into a client for that lawyer as family law of this type. So we got to figure out those things and then kind of set the parameters of Google. So a parameter might look like keywords that we tell Google to target. So we might say, okay, someone's searching for, family lawyer near me. We think that that's going to work well. Awesome. Let's target that. Then we start running and the AI starts doing its thing. And the AI is going to be looking at lots of different permutations of that too. So not just that exact term, but other ways people search, other words and synonyms they use that the AI thinks is similar. And so then we've got to be monitoring and saying, you know what? We're getting a bunch of traffic from this search term over here, but it's not converting into leads. We need to tell Google, stop going after that. We're wasting money. Let's focus it over here. And so it's a lot about kind of set the parameters, test, see what happens, course correct, say, let's stop doing this, do more of this, and then always iterate over time. It's always changing, like you mentioned, and competitors are moving in and out, so that landscape changes. How well the client is doing at turning leads into customers changes. So there's lots of different data points we get to factor into to trying to meet clients' goals.
Yeah, sounds like it's a kind of a full-time thing. And so my next question for the audience is like, at what point should you consider advertising? Like, if you're like a small business, if you're a solopreneur, you're making, six figures, like, and they're doing well with just organic content and, kind of like building an audience. But, if you like, at what stage of a company or business should they consider doing advertising on these platforms?
Great question. So there's a couple points I would probably lay out to help think through the framework of making that decision. I would say advertising is really good at two things. It's good at pouring fuel on a fire. If you have an offer, a business that's working well right now, and you need to, grow that, get more leads in, you've got things established, awesome. If you have a business that's drowning, advertising often is not a magic bullet because it's going to put fire on something that's not working. It's going to get you more leads that you're not closing, and so you're just wasting money. So that's one thing I see often is businesses will say, okay, advertising is going to fix all my problems, and you have to be really careful and say, well, no, there's things it can't fix. It can get you more leads, it can get you more exposure, but you've got to have the right systems and processes and margins in place to actually turn those things into customers. Otherwise, you're wasting money. So that's one thing to really think through. Advertising can be really good at testing, improving, kind of a model as well. So
Yeah.
for a lot of businesses, they really can't be competitive organically. If you're the 17th lawyer in town and there's 16 others that are already on Google and you get position 17, no one's going to ever see you. You can work to try and fix that, but with SEO, it's a long game. It could take months and years to maybe do that. Whereas with advertising, you can pay essentially to shortcut that and try and get to the top or close to the top. And
Yeah.
so it can be really good for businesses who are kind of dealing with that reality. Probably the last thing I would say on the framework side of things is be willing, be patient. A lot of businesses would be like, all right, well, we're gonna throw money at this for a couple weeks or a month and see what happens. And it takes time in advertising, as with all things, to really figure out what's working. You can get immediate results as far as are people clicking the ads? Awesome. Are these the right search terms, etc. But it takes time to really hone down and say, okay, well, these are turning into leads, these aren't. Then what's the quality of the leads coming in? How are you converting them into sales? And so I would encourage anybody who's wanting to get into digital advertising for their business to say at least 3 months. We're going to test this for at least 3 months, get a realistic budget in place to really see what is possible from digital advertising for my business.
Yeah. how can people find out more about you and find out more about StubGroup, work with you, connect with you, and all of that?
Yeah, super easy. Our website, stubgroup.com. You can check that out. We do what we call a free consultation for businesses. So if you're currently doing digital advertising, we'll look at what you're doing for free and kind of put together our recommendations of if there are opportunities to improve that, what we would do differently. If you're not doing digital advertising, we'll look at your market and put together some ideas, kind of what it would look like to do that for you.
Yeah.
And then if you want just a bunch of free information about digital advertising, Google and Facebook, etc., check out our YouTube channel, Stub Group. On there, lots of video content that we put out for free.
Yeah, I love that. And for all the audience, be sure to give John a like and follow on socials and check out StubGroup and work with him if that makes sense for your business or company. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Great chatting with you.